Once upon a time, Xiaoyan shook the Do-Chi continent with a single flame lotus. Now that same terror descends again, not as one, but as countless flame lotuses flooding the heavens. And this time the battlefield is no longer a continent, but a supreme realm war. When Xiaoyan was still on the Do-Chi continent, he became famous for a single move, the terrifying flame lotus. But now those flame lotuses were erupting in overwhelming numbers, covering the heavens and the earth. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Continuing from before, the horrifying detonation of the flame lotuses tore through the heavens, twisting space itself for several thousand zhang. Invisible distortions rippled outward like shattered glass, while violent tides of flame surged in all directions, swallowing mountains and valleys alike. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, the world was reduced to a boundless sea of blazing fire. The inferno raged without restraint. Even the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was drawn into the catastrophe, crackling violently, as if it, too, were about to ignite and burn to nothingness. Only after a long while did the firestorm finally begin to subside. When the raging flames receded, the sight that greeted the world was one of utter desolation. The massive black hall that had once towered proudly amid the mountain range, a symbol of dominance and power, had vanished without leaving behind even a fragment. In its place remained only a colossal crater, its depths shrouded in darkness, as if it were a wound torn open in the land itself. Above that abyss, Xiaoyan hovered calmly in mid-air. 22 heavenly flames revolved around his body in slow, solemn orbits, each one radiating a destructive aura capable of incinerating supremes. Their light illuminated his figure, casting flickering reflections across his cold, impassive face. He gazed down into the pitch-black depths below, his eyes devoid of emotion. Then his voice rang out calm, steady, and utterly unhurried as it echoed deep into the darkness. "Come out." A brief pause. "This level of attack is nowhere near enough to injure you." The moment his words faded, a change occurred. From the depths of the enormous crater, a blood-red radiance slowly began to seep out, staining the darkness with a sinister glow. The light thickened, spreading like flowing blood until it filled the abyss with an oppressive, chilling presence. Soon after, a figure clad in white robes rose unhurriedly from below. Xiaoyan's gaze locked onto the man. In an instant, realization dawned upon him. This person was very likely Huang Yunpo, a cultivator from a lower plane. A faint smile curved Huang Yunpo's lips as he looked at Xiaoyan, his tone light and indifferent. "How interesting." As soon as his words fell, the air behind him trembled violently. One figure after another tore through the void, appearing in rapid succession. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 Supreme Realm experts had gathered at his back, their auras surging skyward like raging tides. They were the elites of the Blood God camp, each one a terrifying existence capable of shaking an entire region. The atmosphere instantly grew heavy. Between the burning sky above and the shattered earth below, a Supreme Realm confrontation was about to erupt. At the same time, a series of sharp, piercing whistling sounds tore through the air behind Xiaoyan, as if the void itself were being ripped apart. In the blink of an eye, space distorted violently. Figures stepped forth one after another. At the forefront stood Luo Jiutian, followed closely by more than 20 Supreme Realm experts. Their auras surged skyward, interweaving into an overwhelming pressure that blanketed the battlefield, instantly suppressing the surrounding chaos. The moment Luo Jiutian's gaze locked onto the white-robed figure standing opposite them, his voice rang out cold and resolute, echoing across heaven and earth. "Huang Yunpo, isn't it time we settled both our old grudges and new debts?" His words carried no excess emotion, yet beneath that calm tone lay killing intent sharpened through countless battles. Huang Yunpo slowly shifted his gaze toward the newcomers. His eyes swept over Luo Jiutian and the Supremes behind him, before finally pausing briefly on Xiaoyan. A faint, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "So this is your foundation. You went as far as inviting a breakthrough cultivator from a lower plane. His voice was light, casual, as though he were merely commenting on something utterly insignificant. Then, with a hint of amusement, he continued, "If this is all you're relying on, then I'm afraid I'll make you despair very soon." As his final word fell, the atmosphere changed abruptly. A terrifying aura erupted from Huang Yunpo's body like a volcanic explosion surging outward without restraint. The heavens groaned, space trembled, and even the spiritual energy of the world was forcibly pushed aside, unable to approach his vicinity. The Supremes present felt their hearts pound violently, their breaths turning heavy as the pressure bore down upon them. When Luo Jiutian sensed that aura clearly, his pupils shrank sharply. A shocked cry escaped his lips, no longer able to remain composed. Eighth grade Supreme. Those words echoed like thunder striking directly into everyone's minds. An eighth grade Supreme, a level that stood far above them all. Huang Yunpo's lips curled upward as he observed their reactions. His gaze filled with undisguised mockery as it swept between Luo Jiutian and Xiao. "Well, do you still think you can easily wipe out my blood god camp?" His tone was playful, yet every word carried an oppressive force that weighed heavily on the battlefield. Luo Jiutian's previously calm expression finally changed. The certainty he once held shattered completely. What should have been a battle with victory firmly in hand had been utterly overturned by Huang Yunpo's sudden breakthrough. For a brief moment, hesitation flickered within Luo Jiutian's eyes, and just as uncertainty began to creep into his heart, the previously silent Xiao, standing amid the swirling heavenly flames, suddenly let out a faint smile. That smile was calm, unshaken, and utterly out of place in the face of an eighth grade Supreme. A voice transmitted directly into Luo Jiutian's ears, subtle yet clear, causing his expression to stiffen for a brief instant. Senior Luo Jiutian Xiaoyan's voice sounded calm, devoid of any trace of panic. "If you take charge of the rear battlefield, can the Luo god camp secure victory?" There was a short pause. Then his voice continued steady and resolute. "If you trust me, Xiaoyan, leave Huang Yunpo to me." As those words faded, a powerful aura suddenly surged from Xiaoyan's body. The 22 heavenly flames around him pulsed in response, their brilliance flaring as if answering their master's resolve. Luo Jiutian's heart shook violently. He turned to look at Xiaoyan, disbelief flashing across his eyes. "Can you truly do it?" Although Xiaoyan had once blocked Huang Yunpo's full-strength strike, that alone was far from enough to prove he could contend with a genuine eighth-grade Supreme. The gap between them was simply too great. Xiaoyan's voice entered his ears once more, still calm, almost indifferent. "If I can't win, I'll escape." Those simple words caused the entire sky to fall into a deathly silence. No excuses, no bravado, only a clear, rational resolve. It was almost inconceivable a youth who was merely a sixth-grade Supreme openly proposing to confront an eighth-grade Supreme head-on. Among Supremes, each single grade difference represented a gulf of power several times over. In terms of sheer spiritual power, Huang Yunpo possessed nearly 10 times that of Xiaoyan. By all logic, this was a battle doomed from the start. Yet as Luo Jiutian looked at Xiaoyan's unwavering expression, so calm, so firm, without the slightest hint of fear, the hesitation in his heart gradually faded. His forces had already plunged deep into the blood god camp. To retreat now would mean complete humiliation, not to mention surrendering the initiative to the enemy. Rather than withdraw in disgrace, it was better to gamble everything on this single opportunity. Perhaps, just perhaps, this seemingly reckless decision could turn the tide and completely annihilate the blood god camp, and that chance rested entirely on Xiaoyan. Luo Jiutian took a deep breath, his gaze sharpening as he made his decision. Then, without hesitation, his voice rang out heavy with resolve. "You hold Huang Yunpo back. Once we wipe out the remaining supreme experts of the blood god camp, we will return and assist you." There was no doubt in his tone, no room for retreat. The moment those words were spoken, the direction of the entire battlefield was decided. How interesting. A cold sneer curved Huang Yunpo's lips as he listened. His eyes gleamed with amusement, as though he were watching a group of mortals make a final desperate gamble. Slowly his expression hardened. Then his voice erupted like thunder, reverberating across heaven and earth. I already gave you a way out, but it seems you don't know how to cherish mercy. As the last syllable fell, the air behind him exploded with violent fluctuations of spiritual power. More than 30 Supreme Realm experts unleashed their full strength simultaneously. Auras soared into the sky, intertwining like raging tides as they charged forward without hesitation. In that very instant, the once silent world was torn apart, transforming into a terrifying battlefield where heaven and earth themselves seemed to wail. Fine. Huang Yunpo turned his gaze back to Xiaoyan, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. Just as you wish. High above the battlefield, he looked down at Xiaoyan with a faint, almost gentle smile. Now, there are only the two of us. As his words faded, a blinding beam of white light suddenly burst forth from Xiaoyan's body, shooting straight into the heavens. The space behind him rippled violently. In the span of a single breath, an immense heavenly flame plaza unfolded, materializing behind Xiaoyan like a divine domain descending upon the world. 22 towering stone pillars rose from the plaza, each crowned with a raging heavenly flame. At that moment, all 22 flames resonated in unison. They surged outward, converging with overwhelming force, and in the blink of an eye, fused into an enormous heavenly flame ruler, stretching several thousand jang across the sky. The ruler burned with ancient boundless power, its presence alone causing space to distort and collapse. This was no mere clash between supremes. This was the prelude to a battle that would decide life and death. Xiaoyan's body began to expand violently. Crimson flame surged outward from every inch of his flesh, roaring like an ancient inferno awakened from slumber. In less than a single breath, his form swelled endlessly until a colossal flame giant stood between heaven and earth. Towering over the battlefield like a living god of fire, waves of scorching heat rolled outward, warping space itself. The very air screamed as it was incinerated. Facing a powerhouse like Huang Yunpo, Xiaoyan showed not the slightest hesitation. From the very first moment, he pushed his power to the absolute limit, holding nothing back. This was not a probing exchange. This was a decisive clash. What a peculiar supreme Dharma body! Huang Yunpo gazed at the towering flame giant, genuine surprise flickering through his eyes for the first time. To forge a Dharma body directly from the physical form, such an ability is exceedingly rare even among supremes. His expression soon steadied. In the next instant, an overwhelming torrent of spiritual power surged behind him, far surpassing even Luo Jiutian's peak. The energy condensed violently, forming a vast swirling vortex that devoured the surrounding space. Blood-red light flooded the heavens. Then, a figure stepped out, a blood-red embodiment of slaughter radiating a suffocating, murderous aura that caused even distant supremes to feel their souls tremble. At that moment, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth erupted into chaos, surging and raging as if the world itself were resisting its presence. Without a single word, the blood-red figure suddenly moved. A massive fist shot forward, tearing through space as it slammed toward Xiaoyan with annihilating force. Heavenly Flame, Eternal Ruler. Grand Heng Ruler. Xiaoyan let out a low shout. The colossal Heavenly Flame Ruler in his hands blazed with boundless radiance as he swung it forward without hesitation, slashing directly toward the incoming blood-red giant fist. The moment the two forces collided, boom, a deafening explosion erupted, shaking heaven and earth. The shockwave tore through the void, reverberating across 100,000 miles. Xiaoyan's gaze remained fixed on the center of the collision. The raging flame surged wildly, resisting the blood-red fist with ferocious intensity, yet only for a few fleeting breaths. Then, they shattered. The flames were crushed apart, exploding into countless fragments of fire. The blood-red fist pressed onward unstoppable, continuing its advance toward Xiaoyan. But before it could surge another 1,000 zhang. Xiao smiled. It was calm, confident, almost serene. In the next instant, countless points of light erupted violently around the blood-red fist. 1, 10, 100. In the blink of an eye, their number exceeded 10,000. Flame Lotus, Heavenly Sea. Xiao cold shout rang out. Those countless points of light bloomed simultaneously, unfolding into an endless expanse of exquisitely formed flame lotuses. Layer upon layer, dense beyond counting, they flooded the sky like a blazing ocean descending from the heavens. This was Flame Lotus Heavenly Sea, a supreme technique Xiao comprehended after defeating Hun Tiandi in Central Plains during decades of secluded cultivation. Long ago, back on the Daoqi continent, Xiao had already become renowned for his terrifying flame lotuses. And now, those Buddha's wrath flame lotuses that once struck fear into an entire world were once again appearing in overwhelming numbers, blotting out the heavens. To condense so many flame lotuses in such a short span of time was utterly impossible without terrifying soul power. And Xiao soul power had already stepped into the Emperor Tier soul realm long before he ever became a Dudi. The Emperor Tier soul realm was divided into 9 levels. Xiao had already reached the 6th level of the Emperor soul realm. Combined with his 6th grade supreme cultivation, even when facing an ordinary 7th grade supreme, Xiao would never fall into a disadvantage. And now, standing against an 8th grade supreme, he chose to fight. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.